We finally made it. The World Series finally here. And if you love them or you love to hate them, it will be the Astros and the Braves in this World Series. The Astros back to the World Series for the third time in 5 years, still seeking redemption since, of course, that sign-stealing scandal that tainted their World Series win in 2017. The Braves are looking for their first title since 1995. They've been to the playoffs 17 times since then, but they have never made it back to the Fall Classic until now. You couldn't ask for two better experts to get you ready for the Fall Classic. On the eve of the World Series, we have former player, World Series champ Will Middlebrooks, the guy who also won a World Series when he was president of the Marlins, and the host of the Nothing Personal podcast, David Sampson. So we're going to take a look forward by taking a look back, because both of you have great memories when it comes to the World Series. Will, I assume every time the World Series comes up, you just picture yourself back in 2013.
Oh, I have to. Yeah, that year was special. You know, we started the year in spring training with a lot of free agents, Johnny Gomes, Mike Napoli, Ryan Dempster, a lot of glue guys. And we were picked to get dead last in our division. We got together and said, you know what, let's just do everything we can to win this thing and not accept anything else. And then 2 weeks into the season, we had the Boston Marathon bombings, which brought us a lot closer as a team. We wanted to put the city on our back and be a representation of the resilience and the perseverance that city shows. So we had a little extra fuel there to get us through that season, through that postseason. Just special, special times with special people that I'll never forget.
Now, you won on October 30th, but David, you won actually on this day, 10 years prior to Will won his World Series in 2003. For you, I know that day was really special. I've seen so many pictures, including your dad and all those sorts of things. Take us back to that moment.
Well, I remember that afternoon very clearly, getting ready to go to Yankee Stadium, and we had a police escort going up Madison Avenue to the Madison Avenue Bridge to get to the Major Deegan, to get to Yankee Stadium. And the team bus somehow was live on the local news, and we were being booed by people along the route, the exact opposite of the reaction you get during the New York Marathon. And I kept thinking, I want to be booed only today, because I was so nervous about Game 6, because Josh Beckett was starting on 3 days rest, and I didn't know whether or not he'd be able to do it. I didn't want him to do it, but Jack McKeon was insistent upon it, and we didn't want to get to a Game 7, because in a Game 7, you just don't know what can happen. So for us, it was Game 7. And then the game starts, and then everything just went quiet for me. And when the final out came, I remember exactly the feeling of the permanence of it. And I know, Will, when you win it, the first thing you think of is you're a World Series champion forever. They can never take it away from you.
I love seeing that video of Pudge, though. Both of you guys know that I'm a Rangers girl, even though I don't know if they're ever going to get back to the World Series at this point. So that was very nice to see Pudge in that video. All right, let's talk about the teams that we do have. The Braves back to the World Series for the first time since 1999. David, this is a team that people didn't necessarily think would be here, especially in the middle of the season. This front office really stepped up to get to this point.
Well, the National League East was just a disaster of a division, and you remember when we were previewing this season, we thought that would be a very deep division. The Marlins had finally made the playoffs. You had the Nationals with that great rotation of Max Scherzer and Strasburg and Corbin. You had the Braves, who had made it all the way to the LCS. You had the Mets with the new owner and the excitement in Lindor. Meanwhile, the division was a total dud. So the Braves are not playing well. They're not even at 500. All of a sudden, Acuna gets injured. They lose Ozuna to the domestic violence administrative leave. Their number one pitcher, Soroka, never makes it back because of his Achilles. And the Astros are just sort of hanging around. And then the GM said, I have an idea. Let's try to win this division and take our chances. And the Braves know better than anyone that you've got to win your division to get back to the playoffs, and then you never know. They've won it so many times and only won one World Series. They said, let's try this again. And they changed out their outfield, and all of a sudden the team started playing so well, won the division, and obviously you've seen what they've done in October.
Will, tell me from a player's perspective, though. I mean, David gave us the front office perspective, but I mean, going through that sort of adversity in the middle of the season like that to get to this point.
No, that's it. I mean, I remember looking back around the trade deadline thinking there's no way they buy. They'll get rid of a couple guys, retool in a couple spots, and really kind of throw up the white flag because they lost a lot of offensive production and their best starting pitcher. Well, they did the opposite. They go get Jock Peterson, Adam Duvall, Jorge Soler, Rosario, who's been insane this postseason. Soler carried him through the September before he got COVID and missed a little bit of the postseason. But just those acquisitions and the front office showing faith in the players. That's the thing, is if you don't make those moves, the players feel it. The veteran players know it. Okay, we're not going for it. Now, they make those moves and it reassures them they believe in what they have and the product they're putting on the field. And that did nothing but drive them to play even better in the second half.
Talk about the Astros here. Road to redemption. I put out on Twitter over the weekend after they won, would people ever respect the Astros ever again? And it's just been from the fans, David. It's so much from the fans that they just still do not love this team. But do the players, do people in baseball, do you think still feel like that, David?
Everyone loves a villain, right? You want to have villains because you need someone to boo. It makes you feel better about yourself. It makes you feel better when your team isn't winning, that another team did something wrong, and then you don't want them to win, so you just boo them. But here's the bottom line with the Astros. They're good. How about 5 straight appearances? How about the 3rd World Series? This is a team that was a Game 7 away in 2019 for going for their 3rd World Series in 5 years. It's a little like the San Francisco Giants in the 2010s, and we call that sort of a dynasty. So the Astros need to win this World Series to be considered like a dynasty, and it was very telling after the series against the Red Sox when the owner, Jim Crane, was very subtly applauding. He wants a ring so badly because in that room of owners, what he did in 17 in his mind, he shies away from it, isn't proud of it. He needs another one. I'm not sure the players think that way at all.
Will, what's your perspective on all of this? I mean, as a former player, as a current fan with the Astros, what do you think about all this?
Through baseball, the players have let this go. Now, it's still there. Obviously, we see pitchers make quotes about it here and there. But for the most part, this is gone. It was 4 years ago. You have to move on in baseball. Now, for the Astros themselves, this is their chance to not necessarily put it to bed. It will always be a cloud over their head, unfortunately. But just to be able to prove, hey, we're a good ball club. We can do this without cheating. That means a lot. And it's just what they've dealt with over the past couple of years. It's grown a massive, massive chip on their shoulder. Now, should that be that way? No, they did wrong and they got caught. But that's not how it works. When people are booing you and other teams are throwing at you, it builds up, like I said, just a massive chip that they use to fuel them and motivate them. And we're seeing Carlos Correa, who has been the mouthpiece for that team over the last 3 years or last 2 years about all of this, have a great season, have a really good postseason. So they're really itching to get out there and win this thing.
Let's talk about the managers on each side. David, I want to start with you here because you've been around the game for a very long time. Oldest combined age for managers in a World Series. So walk us through kind of their journeys to get to this point, the significance for them.
Well, you heard Dusty Baker interviewed after they had clinched and gone to the World Series. He talked about his father. He talked about other managers before him. He talked about not getting the respect. And I can only tell you that when we went against him, he was manager of the Cubs, and we did not think he was managing that team well during that postseason series or, frankly, that pitching staff throughout that year. So we kept saying, keep pitchers in, Dusty. We're going to get to them. We're going to get to them. Personally, I'm fine with Dusty now getting back to the World Series. It's too bad that their combined age has now thrown our World Series into second place when we had McKeon and Torrey managing against each other in 03. But for Dusty, he wants this because he's got the burden of older managers, old school, the irony of an old school manager on the Astros. We can talk about it another time. And that's exactly where I think Brian Snitker is. He is an organizational guy, not as famous as Dusty Baker, not the type of career on the field or off the field as Dusty Baker. He's been a grinder. And for him to have this opportunity to do something that the Braves, frankly, have not done well. Winning one World Series when you win the division every year, you said it's their 17th postseason experience without getting one of these. That is a huge motivation for the Braves and for Snitker. So one of these men is going to be super happy in the next 9 days, and one of them is going to be despondent beyond repair.
Will, when you're looking at this lineup, which team has the better lineup?
Well, Houston. It's got to be Houston. For me, they're the best offense in baseball for most of the season. I mean, you look at their batting average, 268. That's first in the league. 9.5 hits per game. That's first in the league. I mean, it goes on and on. They scored almost 5.5 runs. They slugged third best in the league. And then 1 through 7, they're the best lineup in baseball, in my opinion, easily. Yuri Gurriel was a batting champion this year. He bats 7th. All right. Jose Altuve is really the motor that gets them going. He hasn't even really gotten going in the postseason yet. He hit under 200 in the ALCS. He's hitting right at 200 in the postseason. I expect him to get going, Carlos Correa to get going, and what Yordan Alvarez has been doing has been big poppy-esque.
Big poppy-esque. I like it. David, do you agree with Will? Do you think that they have the Astros have the best lineup here?
I had the Rays as the best lineup in baseball throughout the season, and I had the Astros actually number 2 ahead of the Yankees lineup. But really, none of that matters. All of the season is gone. Now we're talking about October. And the question is better asked, who has the hottest lineup? And yes, the Astros, are deep. But the top of their lineup with Altuve and Brantley and Bregman, they've been not terrible, not great. When I look at what the Braves have and you look at the top of their lineup, today I say the Braves have a better lineup than the Astros today.
Hotter. And Will, I know you know about that with your Red Sox and their bats and what happened to them. We won't go into that. We're not going to go into that right now, Will. That's for another day. I want to talk about Lance McCullers because he will not be pitching in this World Series. And Will, the Astros are favored here, but you pointed out before we came on camera, you said, look, they kind of only have 2 starting pitchers now.
Yeah, I mean, McCullers is their ace. He's their best arm. He's their most reliable starter. So not having him leaves a void there. Framber Valdez has got good stuff sometimes. Luis Garcia is very good sometimes. You don't need sometimes in the World Series. You need a definite answer, someone that's going to go out and give you at least 5 good innings. They have Jose Urquidy as well. Zach Greinke, who hasn't thrown much over the last 2 months. We saw him get shelled last series early when he had to come in. Jake Odorizzi, same thing. He had to come in after Garcia hurt his knee, and he gave it up as well. So they don't have a lot of confidence in their starting pitching. They do have confidence in the bullpen, who has thrown well this postseason, and we're going to see the bullpen probably cover a lot of innings, especially in game 2 and 3, or 3 and 4, excuse me.
Will and David, thank you guys so much. You are far from finished, though, my friends. We have so much to talk about when it comes to the World Series. You guys, hang on, because coming up next, we're going to ask them who's going to win Game 1, who will win the whole thing. We will also talk to Jim Bowden, who's in Houston. It is the eve of the World Series, and we are getting you ready right here on CBS Sports HQ. The series starting tomorrow night, just after 8 Eastern in Houston. Of course, you have the Houston Astros going up against the Braves, a team not many in the middle of the season many thought would be here. But as you heard David Sampson say just a few minutes ago, front office made a lot of changes. The players stepped up, as our Will Middlebrooks told you, and they are here. So here's the pitching matchup for Game 1. You get Charlie Morton getting the start for the Braves. This is his 3rd World Series appearance in the past 5 years with 3 different teams. He played for the Astros in 2017 when they won. He beat the Astros as a member of the Rays in Game 7 of the ALCS back in 2020. Went on to the World Series then. And he's going to be going up against Framber Valdez, who had the longest start of any pitcher this postseason. He allowed just 1 run in 8 innings pitched against the Red Sox last Wednesday in Game 5 of the ALCS. Let's welcome back in David Sampson, Will Middlebrooks. We are also now joined by our very good friend Jim Bowden, longtime GM who was in Houston for the World Series. So, Jim, we're going to get into some picks here, but before that, you've been there in Houston, you've gone to practice and stuff. Tell us what's going on today.
Yeah, tremendous day. The Houston Astros just got finished taking batting practice, and what a show they put on as usual. Yordan Alvarez hitting one ball after another into the upper decks here in Houston. Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, the whole group up and down the lineup. Sweet spot contact. It was loud. It was impressive. It was also very hot. They had the roof open, something we're not expecting to see before Game 1. And we're also expecting the Atlanta Braves to take the field here in about an hour or so as they begin their workout early this evening. But a tremendous day. And it's funny because everywhere you go in Houston, it doesn't matter if it's at the airport or an Uber driver or at the hotel or even talking to fans on the way to the ballpark. Everybody talks about what happened in 2017. They know that the outside world looks at that world championship as being tainted, and everybody in this city is just dying for a world championship that's not tainted. They hope that happens this week.
Well, it's all going to get underway tomorrow. Let's talk about Game 1 there. The Astros are favored. They are minus 130. I will tell you that number was at 150 earlier today. It is now down to 130. Will, I'm going to go back out to you. Give me your pick for game one.
I like the Houston Astros in game one. A lot of that hangs on which version of Framber we get. Now, if we get him from the White Sox series and early in the Red Sox series, then he'll get hit around. But what we saw in game 5 versus the Red Sox was impressive. 8 innings. He kept the ball on the ground. I think if you watch him in the first inning, you're going to know exactly what you're going to get. Watch his fastball with that vertical sink, vertical break. If he's working it down at the bottom of the zone, he's going to get a lot of ground balls, a lot of weak contact, and get deeper into the game.
David, what do you think? What do you think about game one?
Well, I'm a little opposite than you, Will, and I understand that home teams have had a much better go of it this postseason, but I'm actually focused on the long ball because that's what baseball is, home runs, strikeouts, and walks, and teams who out-home run the other team, they're winning practically every game, and I'm thinking about that Braves lineup. I don't even want to talk about Charlie Morton because I think he has the experience and the advantage, but I still like the Braves lineup today more than the Houston Astros lineup today, and that gives them the advantage. They understand how important it is to suck the air out of Minute Maid Park and get game one on the road.
Well, David, as you mentioned, their bats are hot right now. Jim, you're there, you're in Houston, you've seen one of the teams, you're going to see another. What do you think about game one? Who comes away with the first win?
I side with Will Middlebrooks, but I'm going to go with David Sampson's reasoning on the other side. I've got the Astros winning game one, 4-3. I like Framber Valdez when his command and control is there. He is dominant. But I like the Astros lineup significantly more than Atlanta. They've got 7 guys that can flat out hit good pitching, 7 of them. They also have power up and down this lineup. They've also been to the biggest stage here. They've been to the World Series. They're used to being here. Altuve and Bregman and Gurriel and Alvarez. And the young kids like Kyle Tucker are ready to do damage here. So I like their lineup a lot better than Atlanta. Don't get me wrong. I love Freddie Freeman, Austin Riley, and Ozzie Albies in the middle. And they do have power, as David said, up and down that Atlanta lineup. But the Astros have the better hitters, and I love Valdez at home, game one. I'm going Astros with Will.
We're going to jump through the whole thing. We're going to go right to the end. Who wins the World Series here? Will, you have the Astros taking game one. What do you think about the whole thing?
This could be a good one. This one could go the distance. I'm going to go Astros in 6. I think the Astros win the first 2 games. I think then they have a little shortage with starting pitching in game 3 and 4 and have to throw together some bullpen games, maybe have to use Zach Greinke, maybe Urquidy and Odorizzi, and the Braves take advantage of that. I think they even it up at 2, and then we see Valdez and Garcia pitch well again in 5 and 6, and I think they ended there.
David, you've been big on the Braves for game one. What do you think about the whole series?
On March 31st, I said the Braves would beat the Yankees in the World Series. When this season first started, of course, I assumed Acuna would win the MVP as well. But all of that said, I can't change my mind. I think having Morton pitch game one is a stroke of brilliance because if you can somehow get it, you're then looking at Max Fried unannounced, but my view is he goes game 2. And so I believe that the Braves, I like their lineup, I like their starting pitching, I like their bullpen. Houston's good, Braves are a little better. Braves in 7. We're going the distance, James Earl Jones.
There's something, no better words. We all know it. We love the words. Game 7. We'll see if we get it. Jim, split the difference here. You got one. Will's going with the Astros. David's going with the Braves. What do you say, Jim?
Well, I say if Lance McCullers was healthy, the Astros would win in 5 games. But because he's not, he's out for the World Series, the Astros will win this series in 6 games. I think they're a significantly better team. I think the lineup is deeper. I like the young starting pitcher. Luis Garcia has been so impressive. I love Valdez. I think Urquidy will pitch well. The bullpen is good at the back end. And I think the Atlanta Braves, all those left-handed relievers at the back end that are so dominant, they're going to have a hard time with the Astros lineup, in my opinion. Too many hitters in this lineup. I got 6 games, and Houston Astros winning their first World Championship since 2017.
Jim, I want to follow up because I was able to ask Will and David this, but if the Astros do win the World Series, I mean, is this that redemption that they need, or are they always going to have fans coming after them for 2017?
Well, I think it's redemption for the players that were here in 2017, right? I think for Altuve and Bregman and Correa, yes. I think it will be redemption. For the players that aren't here, like George Springer in Toronto, you know, they have to deal with that. But this is a much different team than the one we saw 5 years ago, to be honest. So it is a different team. But for those big stars, yes, I think it would be redemption, and I think they would feel a little bit better about themselves, and I think the nation will too.
Will, you have the Astros winning the World Series here. Who's your MVP?
And I just want to say, as David shook his head as I picked the Astros, he told me I'm only picking the Astros because they beat my Red Sox, and that'll make it an easier pill for me to swallow when the Astros win the World Series. So I just had to throw that out there. But I'm going to go for MVP, I'm going Carlos Correa. It's his time. It sure is, and it's time to get paid. He's been the mouthpiece for this team, for the clubhouse throughout this whole cheating scandal. He's been the most vocal one, and has kind of put that cape on and been that guy. But he's a free agent after this. He wants to get paid, and what a better way to get paid and go into those negotiations after winning a World Series MVP.
Will, I want to follow up very quickly because I spoke with David earlier this morning, and he said if you're the Red Sox or the Dodgers, you're not watching the World Series. You're curled up in a ball somewhere. If you made it to that point and didn't go, would you be watching the World Series?
No, I would not. It would make you sick to your stomach. Go find you a cabin in the mountains, maybe a golf course resort, and just don't even turn it on.
Not even. Okay, so he agrees there. David, give me your World Series MVP.
Is it possible that Eddie Rosario can pull a Corey Seager and go LCS World Series MVP? Yes, but I have to go with my main man, Freddie. He's been there through all of the bad. Now it's the good. And here's my point about Freddie Freeman in a Game 7. When you need a hit, there's one guy on these two teams that I want up at the plate. One above them all, and that's Freddie Freeman. He has the big hits later in the series. Freddie Freeman, first ring and first World Series MVP.
Jim Bowden, you're there in Houston. You get final say on this one. Who is your pick to win World Series MVP?
It's Carlos Correa, 7.2 WAR in the regular season, and this guy just loves the center stage. This is the stage he was meant to be on, is the World Series stage. He's going to have a big series.
All right, you're in agreement with Will all the way here. Going with Carlos Correa to win MVP, going with the Astros to win in 6. Jim Bowden, enjoy Houston. I know we'll talk to you a lot. Will Mitterbrooks, David Sampson, thank you guys so much. And there it is. We're getting started tomorrow night in Houston. Game 1, first pitch there, 8:09 Eastern. 2 of our 3 guys, David's the lone person there, going with the Braves to win the World Series. Both Jim and Will saying that the Astros will take it in 6. Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.